we're a country of shortcuts. I wish we would stop taking shortcuts. There's these set formulas, yehi bikta hai, we have decided, some powers that we have just decided this is the way, these are the stories that are worth telling and this is how we're going to tell them. And it's really unfortunate. So our entertainment business needs a complete overhaul. It is the most powerful sector in the country. They play a very critical role in shaping culture. And I'm not sure how much they realize the kind of responsibility that they have. As a region, we need to strengthen our storytelling. We need to tell stories and we need to give opportunities to people that have merit and not try to look for shortcuts. I wanted to be a writer and a journalist because my mother was a journalist. And then I got a 60% scholarship to Syracuse University in upstate New York. Then when I graduated, I was very lucky that I immediately got an editorial internship at Esquire magazine, which is a men's magazine. And I was one of, I think, 2 people of color in the office. And I realized then that this is not my place. I can't work here long term. And Al Jazeera launched in America and I really desperately wanted to be a part of it. And also Twitter was a huge thing. So उनके कुछ shows थे तो मैं tweet करती थी and through that they kind of discovered me and I met somebody and I was interviewed on a Wednesday and I started on a Monday. On that following Monday, I think I was the fastest hire at that time at Al Jazeera and I moved to DC and it was just the most exciting time. When I was a journalist at Al Jazeera, and even though the workforce was I would say 70, 80%, maybe 90% Muslim, the representation of Muslims and particularly Pakistanis in the media was so bothersome and it was so hurtful. और उस वक्त Zero Dark 30 भी आया था और बहुत सारी चीज़ें हो रही थी, पेशावर स्कूल अटैक हुए थे एंड उससे मुझे बड़े वाज़ेह तौर पे नज़र आ गया था कि दुनिया को ना हमारी फ़िक्र है ना परवाह है और one of the reasons is because we're not telling our own stories. Other people have told our stories for us from a very particular lens. We need to take ownership of that. And the wider world consumes entertainment. They don't really consume news so much or documentaries so much, which was my forte. With journalism, I was just preaching to the choir and I really needed to make change, you had to get into entertainment. And so I switched tracks then. And so I left everything. I left journalism, I left my job, and I took on NAPA full on 3 years. And when I was at NAPA, लोग obviously Zia Muhyiddin को idolize करते थे और बात करते थे, Zia साहब RADA से train हुए हैं London में. So I was like, oh, okay, this is a really big thing. He was my teacher, वो हमें diction पढ़ाते थे हर हफ्ते. And I was so petrified of him कि मैं वैसे उर्दू मेरी इतनी अच्छी नहीं थी क्योंकि मैं इस मुल्क में पली बड़ी नहीं थी. फिर मैं जब वापस भी आई तो I went to a very preppy private school और वहाँ पे उर्दू पढ़ना बहुत मायूब समझा जाता है. तो मेरी उर्दू जितनी ठीक हुई है वो ज़िया साहब की तोफ़ैल हुई है. So we did Urdu diction every week with him and I could never ever perform in front of him. 2 मिनट का monologue होता था, मुश्किल से शायद 15 सेकंड भी मैं कर पाती थी. When he died, I was in a really bad place and at that point I had already buried 6 people close to me. And I was not, छोटे मोटे TV projects किए थे, छोटे मोटे role मैंने movies में किए थे, ads मैंने काफ़ी किए. But I was really demoralized and I thought, this is not for me and I think I should give up on acting. And then my husband said, why don't you just apply to RADA in Zia Saab's name and memory and see how far you go. And then I said, okay, if I'm going to do this, then this will be the last thing that I do. And this will be the universe and God and nature, whoever telling me, कि बस रास्ता यहाँ तक खत्म. You're not good enough. If you cannot make it to RADA, you are not good enough to be an actor. That's it. And I had deliberately set myself up for failure because it is excruciatingly hard to get into RADA. Even people in England, Riz Ahmed's, bade stars RADA nahi gaye hain, you know. And because I am Gujarati and incredibly conjuice, I applied to RADA because there's no application fees, not expecting anything. Then I got an audition call and it was a five-part structure to that audition. And even after that, it was like 5 months of, you know, different things. And then वो भी मुझे था कि चलो इसके बाद तो जवाब तो नहीं आने वाला. And then I got a final interview call and I couldn't believe it. And उस वक्त मुझे था कि चलो यहाँ तक भी पहुँच रहा है, इससे आगे तो obviously नहीं possible है. और मुझे बड़ा अफसोस हुआ था. I told my mother-in-law, I wish I had recorded this interview because इसके बाद तो आगे नहीं जाना होगा. At least I would have had this memory, you know, to prove to the world and to myself that I made it. इतना भी I did. And then she said, no, you will. You absolutely will. And she was right. I think it's a miracle and a half that I made it to RADA. And I did not know this at the time. मेरा क्योंकि visa reject हो गया था, तो हमें पता चला कि, and I emailed the school saying, look, they've rejected my visa, can you help me out? Maybe we can write a letter to the visa officer saying कि इतने percentage लोग पाकिस्तान से आते हैं for this program, तो आप इसको visa grant कर दें. तो फिर उन्होंने कहा कि कोई percentage पाकिस्तान से नहीं आया, you're the first person from Pakistan to make it to the graduate program. And I couldn't believe it. And even now, it's kind of hard to believe. I didn't trust in my own story and my own voice, which my teachers really helped cultivate. And I discovered that my voice is very political. Also learned that through that कि NAPA में ही इस वक्त, क्योंकि मैं NAPA की हूँ, जो मेरे colleagues थे, they are also incredibly gifted and talented. It is unfortunate that we are not giving them the opportunities that they deserve to grace the screen and the stage more. And a very troublesome thing that I also discovered is that हमारी representation नहीं exist करती on the global stage and screens. It was just so isolating being a Muslim at a time where we're going through a genocide that people in my own institute did not care. जो मेरी पहली public performance थी, I created an entire character, a vagabond, a displaced person who was Palestinian. I brought elements of my faith into my performance, azan, sajda, and tried to show to the best of my capability कि we are not some freak show और हम society से, global society से मुख्तलिफ नहीं हैं. Because I felt so isolated the entire year, I had to do this on my own. I was able to create this show where you see a Muslim woman in all her flaws, and where I sing, I dance, I pray, you see me angry, you see me cursing, you see me in tears, you see me in pain, you see a whole spectrum of emotion. The show was completely sold out. My teachers were fabulous. They gave me a platform to speak my truth, to bring elements of my culture. So I'm very grateful to RADA to have given me that platform. But it's just the fact that, you know, it's just human nature that if you are not visible and if you're not present in certain spaces, your voice and your story will not necessarily be heard. As a region, we need to strengthen our storytelling. I was speaking to these news anchors right now. One was Christian, the other was Bihari. And they said, you know, the way they represent our communities in television dramas is so offensive. हम ऐसे ना बात करते हैं ना हम ऐसे, because research नहीं करना ही नहीं चाहते research इतनी basic level पे. World over, the way to create content has completely changed. There's a writer's room. There's not one person writing. When you sit in a group of people, particularly when you sit with a group of younger people, you get to know what's on trend. How do people speak right now? And so you stay connected to a new audience that is just coming up. And we're not doing that at all. We need to tell stories and we need to give opportunities to people that have merit and not try to look for shortcuts. Elevate the art form, and it'll come when you try to empower theatre. Theatre around the world is struggling, but Pakistan even more so. Any theatre that I've been able to do has been at the behest of corporate sponsorship. We need people of means, corporations to really invest in the theatre. World over ऐसा ही होता है. And we need people from our own culture, from our own country to do these things, to take the effort to train if they have the resources to do it, which they do, to get to those platforms, to be able to create this kind of content that people cannot ignore. I became an actor with this fundamental core purpose of changing the narrative of Muslims and Pakistanis globally. But to be able to do that, I need to become an actor of extreme merit and a star with enough power and prestige to have a kind of platform that somebody like Riz Ahmed does, for example, or someone like Sharmeen does, for example. I want to do that. That's what I want to do. Take my own stories and put them out on a global stage. Create a company full of actors and writers from our region to develop content that can be consumed globally. That is my ultimate goal.